Welcome back. Stasa23 here, back again with some knife therapy. And the knife I have in front of you today is the Ontario Knives Carter Trinity. And this is designed by professional knife maker Robert Carter, who is just an excellent designer and does some really cool stuff. If you don't know who he is, you definitely need to go check him out. Do yourself a favor. He makes some of his own Damascus, and he calls it Rob Mascus and Ty Mascus and all that. Just incredibly talented. And I was originally drawn to this knife because I like the aesthetics. It was lightweight and had this slim profile. Here's the packaging. Sorry, just a cardboard box. And the Trinity is designed after the Robert Carter, Nick Chuprin of NCC Knives BBM. And that collaboration knife was just jaw-dropping. My buddy, Dr. Frunke, has one that Robert Carter did a signature black titanium finish on it. And that knife, God, every time he posts it, I'm drooling a little bit on myself. So when I found out they were doing Ontario was doing one, I was so excited, couldn't wait for it to come out. And the other day it finally dropped, and I was so excited for it to come in. And let's kind of dive into what we have, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and why. I'm going to just be honest and upfront why I think this was a total failure. The Trinity comes in right around $60 from Blade HQ. You have this drop point-ish tanto with this nice, beautiful, attractive swedge. The knife didn't come with this brass thumb bar right there. I'll talk about that later. You have a nice satin finish on there. You have a shallow hollow grind that comes to a nice thin edge. It's reading on my calipers around 0.020 behind the thinnest portion of the edge, and it kind of thickens up as it gets to the tanto. But 0.020 is rather thin. That's Spyderco Delica thin. So this guy is a pretty good slicer, especially up until you get to the full thickness right up in here. One thing that I noticed right off the back, that this thing came screaming sharp out of the box. And let me see if I got some paper. Yeah, hardly any resistance whenever. And I've cut stuff with this already, so listen to this. Super duper sharp. I mean, I was thoroughly impressed. That's one thing that had put a smile on my face right away. And another thing, usually when I get these tantos like this, they have the main edge nice and sharp, but they don't do a good job with the tanto. But as you can see right here, super sharp as well. They did a great job through and through with the sharpening, that is. Hey, you see, you got some nice big billboarding up here. You got the name of the knife, Carter Trinity, and the blade steel, AUS 8. I know you got tons of people right now going, ugh. If it wasn't AUS 8, I might have bought it. Just messing with you guys. But I'm going to be totally honest. The AUS 8 definitely wasn't a deciding factor on this knife. I mean, honestly, obviously I bought it. But the way I looked at it, for what the role that this knife was going to be in my collection of a light duty secondary blade or something like in that aspect, it didn't matter that it was AUS 8. I'm not going to be cutting down a cardboard house with this or anything. It's going to hold the edge just fine, and then it's going to be easy to touch up with my Spyderco Sharp Maker or a strop up, however I choose. On this side, you got Ontario knife made in Taiwan, 1889. I didn't realize they were that long. They've been around that long. And you can see right here, you have the nice little thumb ramp to put your thumb down. And I'm talking about even without this, you got a nice little spot to put your thumb. One thing that they executed absolutely perfect, or at least it seems, I wouldn't know until I actually sharpen it, is the sharpening tool, as you can see right there. You may get a little bit of a flare up right there, but you can see the plunge line goes down right there, and they pass the plunge line. Let's go back to your flipper tab. Your flipper tab has no jimping on it. It's a little slick, but we're going to get back to the action in just a moment. You got a show side of G10s, your G10 scales on your show side. You got standard pivot, T8 and T6, and you got a full flow through construction, as you can see. And you have some really nice machined barrel spacers. I like how they didn't just put some plain Jane posts in there. I like whenever companies go the extra mile. Flip it over to this side. You got your titanium frame lock. You have your titanium pocket clip. And I did take this knife apart so I could see what makes this knife tick. And the pivot is captured, which is nice to see. So I didn't have to worry about a free spinning pivot. They did have some blue Loctite on it, but they didn't drown it. It wasn't that bad to take apart. I actually took it apart rather quickly. One thing that I like to see, it's a joy. Let me see if I can show the opposite of this. Yeah, I like, as you can see, the lock bar relief cutout is on the outside, and it breaks up the lines, and sometimes it can gather your fabric or your pants or shorts in between there. But as you can see, they did it in the inside right here, and it doesn't break up the lines whatsoever. So I really love that. I wish more companies would do that. And as you can see, this is another Robert Carter design. The Jettison, they got the cutout right there. It would have looked a lot better just having that straight piece. But that's just, that's not hurting functionality at all. So you don't have any internal milling, which you don't need it because this knife is super light. We'll get to the weight in just 1 second. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. My light's not that good in here, but you do have a lock bar insert, and I don't think it, let me see, I don't think it's interchangeable. I think it's pinned in there, but I do like the fact that you don't have any screws right there. It is nice. They did have a nice tight cutout for the lock bar cutout, so the tolerances on that were nice. I don't know if I mentioned it yet, but your action is riding on phosphor bronze washers with a thin Teflon washer on top of it, just like cold steel does. It's fairly smooth. It's not bearing smooth, or it's not, high smoothness like you have on, like, say, some custom knives. But as you can see, it does drop down, and I can shake it a little bit. But there you go. Let's get a quick weight on this guy, and we'll do some size comparisons and some direct competitors, and then I'm going to get into why I think this knife is a total failure. Alrighty. 2.65 ounces, and that's even with the brass thumb plate. So this guy is super, super light. It had so much potential. A nice lightweight backup carry. That's something that I'm usually looking for. Let's get some size comparisons and some direct competition to this knife that I see. One of the biggest competitors in this category would be your Ontario Rat Model 2. And as you can see, the Rat 2 is just a titch bigger in the blade. Another competitor be your CH Knives 3504 Mini. And it is just a little bit bigger as well, but you also have AUS 8 here, titanium all the way around, and I think this one's come in, 55, so very comparable right here, but you have titanium both sides, and you have bearings on this one with a much, much crisp action, much better action. Let's see, what else do I have? Another direct competitor, we have Best Tech Thorn. This one's in 12C28, and I would say these two steels are pretty comparable, at least through my use and testing. Another one that's not in the same price range, but just as a size comparison, is the Kaiser Feist, and the first one that's smaller. The Kaiser Feist, as you can see, is a good bit smaller. And I got two more. I got the Line Steel Roundhead, just also as a size comparison, not a direct comparison. You see the Roundhead is a little bit smaller. And one more last one that is almost identical in size would be your DPX Gear Hest Urban. So there you go. There's all your size comparisons. Now, let's get into why in my eyes, this knife was a total flop, at least for me. It might not be for you, but I'm just trying to tell you my opinions. First off, this was something that I noticed right at the back, and I thought it was pretty ugly. Let's check out, when you have a small knife, it's better to have it buried deeper into the pocket. And this to me was just an ugly thing. And first of all, when you have thicker pockets, you definitely, as you can see, you don't have really much of a ramp, so you have to pull up on that pocket clip majority of the time. And there you go. That's how much of the knife sticking out. That's a good bit of the knife sticking out, especially on such a small handle. And let's see what it looks like in your flat pockets. There you go. So a good bit of the knife sticking out there as well. All right, but that's not the major points for concern. This knife came out of box with an incredibly strong detent. It not only hurt my fingers, it wasn't reliable to flip, and you got a strong detent and you have no jimping on the flipper tab, and I'm glad they didn't, because it probably would have been cutting my hands up. But the original BBM design had a thumb hole for the opening, and I think that is one of the main reasons why this was such a failure, because they, instead of having the thumb hole, they added a flipper tab. And we'll start off, there's two things that the flipper tab really destroyed. Now, you got this flipper tab and it's sitting behind the pivot, and you have no jimping right here, and the detent ball hole, the detent ball was pretty much getting stuck into the detent hole. So sometimes whenever I would go to push this, it would raise the blade up to about right here, and it would just be flexing the titanium. So I took it apart and I made some necessary modifications to make it at least usable for me. And I talked to my buddy 7 Ready Knife Reviews, and he had the same issue with the detent as well. So I'm interested to see what more people will say, to see if it's a problem with all of them. So besides the super strong detent that made it miserable to flip this knife, this is a glare. Like, I don't know how you don't see something like this, but let me show you something on, I think the CH gets it right. Yeah, okay. You got your flipper tab, and you got your forward choil that kind of goes into the flipper tab, so you don't lose any space for your finger to go into. And that's about a perfect size choil for a normal finger. Now look what they did here, okay? You got the flipper tab. You already have this incredibly small forward choil right here. And that choil right there is the most essential part, because that's the thickest part you have, and you're going to be pinching it with your hands like that, and the rest of the hands are going to fall in. And as you can see, because that flipper tab comes into the choil, look where my finger's sitting. And it is not too comfortable, especially when you're bearing down on the knife. That's why I added this thumb stud bar, because I can still flip it like that, but I'm not a big flipper guy. But I can easily rocket it out with a spidey flick, and then if I want to, I can slow roll it, and I can also, whenever it's not slippery, I can also flip it out as well. I'm trying to find some better looking ones, but for right now, it made this knife from no way, I'm not carrying it, to all right, I'm going to test it and carry it. So, like I said, you got the flipper tab behind the pivot and the incredibly strong detent, coupled with the fact that they covered up a quarter of the usable choil that's already small and is your main pinch point. So, like I said, I think I may do a flipper delete, because like the original design, that choil right there was intended to be able to get your whole finger on there. That's why theirs had the I'm guessing that's why they didn't have a flipper tab on it. It just didn't make sense to keep it a compact knife and to put that flipper tab on it. Your actual grip area is 3.5 inches, and it's 3.5 inches, but you have a flipper tab that's pointing back this way, so it's cramping you, and it just doesn't work. So I'm definitely interested to see what it'd be like if I do cut that flipper tab off. Y'all let me know if y'all want me to give that a go or not. Let's see. I think I touched on everything. I touched on the detent being absolutely strong, the choil being ruined by the flipper tab. What else did I? Oh, the pocket clip riding way too high for a small knife in the pocket. I think that's just an ugly thing. You got 4 screws just staring at you, going, "Hey, what's up?" So, like I said, I wanted it to be a win so bad. I had such high expectations for it. And if you like to modify your knives, then it may be one for you. But if you want to get a knife like you should, if you want to get a knife that comes ready out of the box, in my eyes, this is definitely not the knife for you. I'd say save your $60 and buy any of these. You can buy any of these for $60 and under. I mean, you can buy this one. You can buy almost 2 of the Rat 2s and D2s. You got all these D2 model knives, which I much rather D2 than AUS 8. All these are below the price tag of this guy. Then you also have this guy in 14C28N. You have another AUS 8. I would definitely buy this one. At least the action's great on this one, and it looks good. It's not the most ergonomic feeling with all that extra padding. And I would definitely steer you in the direction of these two way before I told you to get this one, unless, like I said, you want to modify them. I've been really enjoying. I'm gonna do a long-term review of this. This is the one I added the top swedge to it just to practice, and I like how the top swedge and the mirror polish edge kind of go hand in hand, but it's dirty right now because I've been using the heck out of it. This is definitely a great knife for the money, and this is another one too that I've really been enjoying. This thing's gotten so smooth. They just all murder this one. They're ganging up on it. So, all right, guys and girls, if you had this knife, let me know if you're experiencing any of the same issues. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. You know I love talking to you guys. And hope everybody's having an absolute wonderful weekend. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.